Hey, Bill, I'm very, very struck by your opening story because it came full circle. You know, she saw a need. You know, she saw a need, and I'm just trying to imagine as you're carrying the tub one direction, she's back there digging through her luggage to give not only just give things to this young gal who needed help. And don't you think it's so true in our life? We want to make an impact, we want to do things, but some of the most obvious things we miss because we're so busy doing our stuff, and we're so busy kind of conquering worlds and fighting battles and doing deals and all this, and there's ministry just right there. And you're right, unless we have eyes to see and ears to hear, we miss, I don't know, countless opportunities to impact the world right there, right in front of us, because we're so oblivious, because we're so into our stuff and our things and our agenda. So I'm really, really struck by that. What a powerful, powerful picture that was. I'm sure super convicting for you, because you're doing good work. Like you say, you're doing something good, but you missed the best thing, and she didn't miss it. So thank you for that willingness to share that story. Very, very struck by that. Other observations, guys, from what Bill shared? He's got a couple of great questions there about being plugged into the power, and Bill, again, great illustration with those making the tea. And I saw you working your stuff, but one of them produced and one of them didn't produce because the power source. Really great illustration too. And give Bill some feedback, give Bill some insights. Maybe you got a story from your own life where you did have eyes to see, ears to hear. You're not bragging on yourself, you're bragging on the God in you who allowed you to see something and then respond accordingly.
Hey, this is Dean, Rod. Just getting on the road. I noticed the silence that we don't usually hear right after a speaker speaks. And I think we're all convicted of Bill's discipleship and the work he's done. And here the rest of us are just living life. I mean, God bless you. It's something for us all to strive for. So I just wanted to share that.
Amen. No, I think you're right, Dean. Very, very convicting, because I think we all do miss those very, very obvious things that the Lord just lays right in our path, but we're oblivious to it and we miss it. So I think you're spot on, Dean, on that.
That's me. I get so focused on things sometimes that I miss obvious things. I know there's been times when I talk about Jaden all the time, my grandson. We'll be driving and we'll pull up to a stop sign, and I'm busy watching the traffic and the stoplight, and he's looking at the guy sitting on the side of the road with the little sign, and he'll wake me up to that stuff. Say, Papa, he's homeless. Can we help him? And I didn't even see the guy, So I get focused on what I'm doing sometimes, and I know I miss out on what Christ is trying to get me involved in. So that's what I was thinking, and that's why I was so quiet when it ended.
Hey, Byron, to your point, this is Steve White. To your point, I remember years ago when my daughter was 4 or 5, we were driving down the road. And we were at a stoplight, and there was a lot of traffic that day, and I was frustrated. And I was telling her, I hate this traffic. It just takes so much longer to get where we're going. And there was a pause. And then she goes, well, Daddy, I like traffic. Honey, why? Why do you like traffic? Because if it takes longer to get there, I get to spend more time with you. So,
oh man.
Out of the mouths of babes.
There's a sharp knife through the heart, my friend.
Yeah. So yeah, it's all how we look at stuff.
Yeah. It's good.
Brothers, I agree. I was convicted, but I remember the Paul on Mars Hill in Acts 17 in verse 25. He says, nor he is served by human hands as though he needed anything, since he himself gives to all people life and breath and all things. And he made from one man every nation of mankind to live on all the face of the earth, having determined their appointed times and the boundaries of their habitation, that they would seek God if perhaps they might feel around for him and find him, though he is not far from each one of us. And I think about that verse a lot because God had created me here right now for this time to be a witness, an ambassador for him. And I'm so convicted every time I go out that I have so many opportunities to share of God's faithfulness. So God's been just striving to help me to be led by his spirit, to really listen to his voice and to speak to that waitress or that waiter or that person in line, or when I'm sitting on the in the airport or by the person that sits by me on the plane, just to know that was an appointed time. It's an appointed time. So I'm convicted. I appreciate what you shared, brother.
When you see that homeless person on the corner, is there something do you have a plan? Some of you may have things that you do when you see somebody homeless, and maybe you carry something in your car that you can give away. What do you do?
Hey, Bill, I'm trying to remember the name of the guy that told me this. He was part of our men's group, which you're sometimes with us on Tuesday nights. But he had pre-made bags of things that he had put together. So he'd really put some pre-thought about what he would want to present someone who's homeless, because he's out and about a lot. And I think he had up to 10 bags in his car, so that when he stopped, it wasn't money, but it was supplies he knew they would need and things that would be a blessing. I think there was some granola bar, and there's, some water and maybe a towel and some, things for his hands, and, just things that he knew would minister. And of course in there, had a gospel tract. So he had some real pre-thought about what would I want to bless people with. And so that was
actually my wife's idea. She came up with those for each of us in our family, and we carried those go bags. We called them go bags, but we carried them with us all winter long.
And remind me what some of those things were in there. Am I describing it right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly what you were saying. A pair of socks, granola bar, water bottle, just whatever things come to mind in just a simple Walmart bag.
Yeah, that's so cool. Very practical way to live out the gospel and be the gospel, be the good news to someone. So that's terrific. Other thoughts, guys, on this? And Bill, of course, I love your third question. How can an older man help a younger man impact their world? And how can a younger man help an older man? Because we've been talking about generational things here at TGIW over the last several months, and how can we impact the next generation? And for those who are not aware, we have made a big push in this. We've had 6 teenagers that have joined TGIW over the last couple of weeks, and some are coming with their dads, some are coming with their granddads, some are bringing their dads. We had a young man brought his dad with him the first time a few weeks ago, and we're seeing some really cool things take place where we're having that interaction, and I attribute a lot of this to the addition of Damian Cooper to our team, our staff. And Damian officially begins in July because he's already started, and we're seeing the evidence and the proof, and there's such a hunger for young men. So any response to Bill's question on that? How can we impact the next generation? How can the next generation impact us? Any thoughts on that, guys?
Well, I've said before that I try to focus on the ones closest to me. I'm not averse to helping other people, But I figure one of my first ministries is to my family, and little 11-year-old Jaden is the point man now for me right now. And I've got Lincoln, who's 2 now, who I'm starting to work with. And I figured if I don't work on them first, I'd be remiss in my duty before God. I want to work with other kids, and I'm sure God will let me because it's a real desire in my heart. But right now, if I can get Jaden to the point where he's an example as he goes to school, I think he will affect the other kids. And I know that God does that multiplication thing to where he uses the person that you teach to teach others. And I'm looking forward to seeing how he grows and how Lincoln grows and my little granddaughter Journey, who's 4. But just spending time with them, and it's really neat that when it's bedtime, Journey wants to take her Bible to bed and have her dad read to her already, and she's 4. She's got her own little story Bible, and when she goes to bed, she grabs it. Her and her dad go in the room and they read together. And Jaden and I, up until just the past few months with all the mess up with school and all that kind of stuff, we would always, before bedtime, he'd go in, brush his teeth and get ready for bed, and I'd go in and we'd talk a little bit. And we have this 100-year-old Bible story book for kids that somebody gave me. And we would read a story from the Bible and talk about it. And then I'd finish reading and he'd go to sleep. But those are things that I'm trying to focus on, are the ones closest to me that I can try to instill in what I have now so that they can have more than I have when they go out into the world. Let them jump from my shoulders.
And guys, don't miss what Byron just said, because, we can try to think, oh, I want to impact the world, but that world includes the people in your inner circle, and don't go out there and miss the opportunity to do this. The people are so close. So Byron, thank you for reminding us of that amazing ministry that God's entrusted you with as a grandpa, as a dad. And it could be someone right there in your immediate family. It could be someone extended family. It could be somebody right in your workplace who, you're there with them all the time. You don't have to go very far to impact the world when you think about the world right around you. So awesome reminder. Go.
Okay. My daughter and son-in-law have gotten into real estate lately, and I get to see the young couples that are moving into their house for the first time, and they look like kids to me, buying a house, making some major moves. And I know from my own son-in-law's experience, a lot of times he'll ask me questions about, maintenance on the house and things that he needs. I was just thinking that that's a good opportunity, for one thing, to work with him, to share, to do things, but it might be also present a good opportunity to try to share the gospel too at those times, and definitely a good way if a neighbor, somebody moved in, you saw a couple like that, and you saw they just moved into their house. It's another, just some thoughts on my part anyways. It's a good way to connect with a younger man, somebody that just moved in. But
So let me share a quick story with you. I was in Oklahoma Thursday, Friday, helping my son Derek and his wife move out of their rental house. They're headed for their next adventure, and so we were helping them pack up and move. And one of the neighbors dropped by, and anyway, found out later that she has grown very close to my son and my daughter-in-law. She has no family, she has no kids, but my son and his wife were attentive to her as a neighbor, and found out that they've helped her go to the driver's license and get her driver's, helped her just with basic needs, getting her groceries from time to time. Just went over and mowed her yard. And when she came over to say goodbye, she was very, very, very complimentary, and just how much she was going to miss, them being there. And I thought, how neat that my son, had eyes to see and ears to hear, and they it was a great win-win for them and for her. And you could tell she's like, I don't know who's going to move into this house, but you guys lived out your life in a way that blessed me, and she blessed them. It was a win-win-win. But praise God, they weren't so into their world that they missed an opportunity to minister to this gal in a very, very tangible way. So very special. All right. Anything else before we close, guys?
Rod, I'll just share this. Some guys from our church last weekend, not yesterday, but last weekend or weekend ago, 8 days ago, we went to Springfield and just to observe a ministry there. It's called Freeway Ministries. And Freeway is a ministry that started about 11 years ago from a man who was a felon. He was grew up on the streets. He was a druggie. He was a drug user, a supplier, anything else you can really think of. That's what he was involved in. Went to prison a couple of times, and it was in prison that he found Christ. And he came out, and he was so excited to really begin his life on the outside with Christ, and realized that, a lot of churches, most churches weren't ready for someone like him to come in, the way he looked, his past, everything. Anyway, long story short, he just felt convicted by the Lord several years later to start Freeway. And today, this ministry, they've got one in Omaha, they've got one in Cape Town, South Africa, they've got one getting ready to start in somewhere up in North Dakota. I think there may be one somewhere else. There's several in the Springfield area. That's the main one. We went just to check this thing out, and that Saturday night of that weekend, every Saturday night they feed homeless people, prostitutes, those who are recently out of prison, whoever, the most down and outers, they're invited to come and have a good meal, and then they hear the gospel. And so we probably saw 300, 400, 500 people in that building eating and then worshiping. And many of them are there because they now do know Jesus, and they worship in a way, guys, that you can tell they know they've been liberated from something. They were at a place where you and I were, but they see it in such a new, fresh way. And it was unbelievable just to be in their presence and to watch them worship. I have since been friended by several of those men and women on Facebook, and to be able to just, that's all they can think about. That's all they talk about. They have jobs, they do other things now, they're integrated into society, but the only thing they can think about and speak about is Jesus. And that was both convicting and inspiring at the same time. And I just think for so many of us, we do get caught up in the minutia of life and forget about what life really is about. And again, I blame a lot of that on Satan. He is good at just getting our eyes just a little bit, just slightly off of Jesus. And it really does change the trajectory, and it changes the kind of the influence really that I think oftentimes we have the potential to have. And so I say all that to think of those people and how they are impacting the world by impacting their world, Bill. This is the world they came out of, and they know the hold that it can have and does have on so many people. And they know there's only one answer, and it's Jesus. And they can't help but speak about him. They can't help but share about him. And so it was a phenomenal experience for us just to be there and be a part of that. And we're kind of praying through how we might be able to do something of that nature, even in the Kansas City area too. So you guys can pray for us for that. But that really hit me with that main statement: impact the world by impacting my world where I am. So thank you for that great word and great reminder today, brother.
Greg, you have a way of provoking me to jealousy. I need to renew the joy of my salvation. It makes you think back to when you first got saved.
Yeah.
It really does, that first love. Mr. Hildebrand, are you related to Ray?
No, we've
No,
talked
hey,
about it, and there's no close relation all the way back to the 1850s anyway, but he's a great guy, and he loves
Okay.
teenagers too, so that's awesome.
I remember Hey Paula,
Mhm.
that song.
Oh,
Yep,
yeah.
and bullfrogs and butterflies, right?
We've both been born again.
That's right.
Yeah. Hey, Bill, I'm going to ask you a quick question. Do you ever heard of a guy named Mully out of Nairobi, Kenya? He runs an orphanage there. They say it's the world's largest orphanage. Does that name ring a bell with you, Charles Mully?
I believe I've heard of that, yes. Yeah.
There's an amazing documentary film that tells the story of his. I mean, you talk about Psalm 126 in action. I mean, he literally would go to the streets of Nairobi, search for kids that looked like they had nowhere to go, and say, "I'll be your daddy. I'll take care of you." And I don't know the numbers, but it's staggering, the number of kids and the whole backstory about the property they now have and the things they're doing around the world, from a man who saw a need, knew he had the message of Jesus, and his legacy is amazing. And what's so cool about his story is all of his children now work for him in the orphanage, and two of his kids married orphans, you know, that came through that. So yeah, and I just every time I hear, you know, your story about being in Kenya, I've always meant to ask you, do you know who Charles Mully is? I've actually got the film, the DVD. It's a gripping story, and I think at one point, when I stumbled upon this, I made that available to TGIW guys to check it out, like a library checkout. And if anybody on the call is interested in hearing that story, it really is Psalm 126 in action. He saw a need, he went, he cared. The gospel's presented. In fact, the cool thing about their school is, in terms of the college graduates and the education and the things they've been able to do with these orphans, is mind-boggling, because without that orphanage and getting the good news to those kids, they would end up being criminals and crooks and crime. I mean, drugs. I mean, who knows all the bad things they could have done, but they become citizens, good citizens, educated, and they're Christ followers. I mean, they got plugged into the power. It's a phenomenal story.
What was the name of that?
Well, let me grab it real quick here.
It's called Mully, M-U-L-L-Y, Mully. It's about an hour and 20 minutes.
Here's Charles right here, and here's the DVD, and it is special. And Greg, I think you've watched it. Scott, you're nodding your head. It's a phenomenal story, all based in Nairobi, Kenya. And I'll tell you a quick story. Charles' kids actually at one point did not like their dad, because he felt like their dad cared about the orphans more than his own kids. And so he had kind of a come to Jesus moment, realizing I got to impact the world, but I also got to impact my family. And now the evidence and proof that his family bought in is they all now work with their dad in the orphanage. And like you say, two of his kids married orphans that came through the program. So it's like I'm just going on memory here. Greg, is it like 50,000 kids in the orphanage? I mean, it's
I do not remember, but it's crazy.
It's a crazy, crazy number that are in the orphanage now. So.
Rod, can you show that at the Bible study sometime?
Well, it's an hour and 20 minutes, so it's long. But I will say this, Bobby, you watched it in my home. Remember, you came over and watched it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
it's a jaw dropper.
but it's worth seeing over and over again.
We'll think about it. We'd have to have a longer TGIW to show it at Bible study, because it's, like I say, it's an hour and 20 minutes. So it's a here's the final line. It's a series of events that is nothing short of astonishing. And that's really, when God gets involved in something, it's astonishing. And Bill, it goes back to your point, when you're plugged into the power, anything is possible. Anything is possible. All right, gentlemen. Good time. Hey, it's 8 o'clock, almost 8 o'clock here. Thank you for being involved. We love you. Thankful. Again, say a prayer for me tomorrow, and I'm in Overland Park. Speaking there, I'm on my way to Nebraska tomorrow night. I'll actually be with Ron Brown in Omaha at an event with Ron Brown on Wednesday night. And then that Thursday morning, I'll be in Norfolk, Nebraska, speaking to about 300 or 400 people at a mayor's prayer breakfast event that morning. Guys, if you can, get to one of the prayer rallies here in the city on Thursday. Leaf Summit one is 9 to 10 a.m. City Hall steps. First one I've missed in years, but obviously I can't be two places at one time. So I'll miss that one here in Leaf Summit, but get, that great way to see our community in a cool way is to pray for our city. Pray for us. Yes, sir.
Just FYI, I looked it up here. I believe if you've got Amazon Prime, you can watch Mully for free. So check it out on Amazon Prime.
Okay.
Okay.
Bill, I didn't realize I'm going to be giving a plug for a movie when you started here today, but
I can't wait to watch it.
I was going to say, you'll love it. You'll love it, Bill.
Yeah, you of all people, given your history of Kenya, you will really appreciate